Hello, everybody. So, yesterday, of course, we were treated to the news that Johnny Depp succeeded in his case against Amber Heard, his $50 million lawsuit against Amber Heard for defaming him in an op ed in the Washington Post in 2018. And, of course, as we all know, this is a defeat for women everywhere. And it's going to set us back to a time where women were publicly humiliated for speaking out about domestic violence and so on. And yeah, this is a defeat for all women. No, this is a defeat for one woman. Obviously, women are not saints or all like lovely angel type people. We should recognize them as, being fallible and immoral. In some cases, clearly, and in some cases, given to being deceitful, conniving, slanderous, bullying, malicious, which is actually what the jury's verdict was, and abusive. In fact, women can, of course, be abusive, and it is no mark of the pursuit of gender equality to suggest otherwise, and no true feminist attitude, I don't think, can hold itself up to much scrutiny or hold much of a claim to self-consistency if it's willing to entertain notions of female exceptionalism. Just can't do that and be true feminists. And we must preserve equality before the law between men and women, because that is there's a legal precept that predates third-wave feminism and indeed second-wave feminism by a great many years, centuries, in fact. And this is, I think, what this is. This ought to really sort of mark, I think, something like the end to this so-called culture war. This sort of culture war between TERF feminazis or swerve feminazis or TERF swerve feminazis on the one hand, or female exceptionists among so-called feminists. We should mark now the division between faux feminists or pseudo-feminists, genuine feminists who truly believe in gender equality and equality, very probably, or in a broader sense than that even, and on the the alt-right and the incel types and the sort of anti-feminism brigade on probably the right, and let's face it, possibly also the new left as well, or the new left sort of rejecting a certain flavor of feminism. And we need to see this sort of quadripartite division more between radical anti-feminism, a general anti-feminazism, radical feminism, and general positive egalitarian feminism, if you see what I mean, within this third wave of feminism that we're still experiencing now. And so likewise, this is not a victory for all men either. I hope, however, it could be seen as a step towards balancing this this sort of slight or possible zone of political confusion or political instability or inequality between men and women, and bring us closer to something like being at parity with one another in terms of our social and political rights. I think that's more like what we ought to be aiming for and wishing for through all this. And I think the right decision has been made. I mean, I've reviewed a fair amount of the evidence myself against Amber Heard and against Johnny Depp, and I've watched quite a lot of the videos of evidence and being put forward in the court, and testimonies of witnesses and so on, and the examination and the questioning and the cross-examination of Amber Heard and Johnny Depp and so on. And it seems like the right decision has been carried in this case, I think. So it's I don't think, well, not necessarily a landmark moment, but I mean, this is certainly how justice ought to be working. And it's kind of nice to sort of breathe a sigh of relief, have a female judge presiding over the case also. She, being a judge, I'd assume, and Camille Vasquez, very adroitly going into bat on behalf of Johnny Depp. So I think, clearly have this impression now that, this is echoed in many, many comments I've seen on news articles online as well, that yeah, it seems women also, they're not willing to stand for this either. It doesn't seem like Kate Moss is willing to perjure herself and lie on behalf of Amber Heard either. Her allegations, so far as that's concerned, and Johnny Depp ostensibly kicking her down a flight of stairs, which would just be in the papers the next day if it had happened in real life. And outside of a marriage, like to Kate Moss, ridiculous. And Johnny Depp would be in jail, and like that. And it's like, well, it's just Johnny Depp's too powerful, and it's like arrested Bill Cosby. Arrested Justin Bieber when he's fucking about in Florida with those fast cars. It's not like celebrities don't get arrested from time to time. Arrested Hugh Grant when he was with that prosy in LA, was it? And Hugh Grant, like back in those days, he was on fire. He was a sort of Johnny Depp level actor, an A-lister. It's ridiculous, stupid. But, no one has time for people who are conspiring to pervert the course of justice or perjuring themselves or slandering people. Really, do we? No one actually likes bullshit and people's bullshit. And it's good that Amber Heard's been punished for her bullshit. And they did soften the blow a bit by reducing the settlement down to $15 million. And not the original $50 million, which would have destroyed her financially. I mean, and she's going to get $2 million back out of that for having, in her turn, been defamed by one of Johnny Depp's lawyers. I'm not certain Depp still has that lawyer. I think he may have canned his ass or something over something like that. And I think it was a guy lawyer, not Camille Vasquez. But I don't know though. It might be Vasquez. She might have to, sort of suffer a little $2 million hit. Even though, let's face it, her career over the course of the next 30 or whatever years she decides to keep doing law, unless she just taps out in the next 10 years after earning, I don't know, like a gajillion dollars after this, certainly, if she's not incredibly wealthy already for that matter, which she probably is, let's face it. I do love how she kept her powder dry on that case, on that cross-examination bit. I can't remember exactly what it was the charity thing. She ran rings around Amber Heard. That was a beautiful bit of lawyering to see. It's just like keeping a powder dry, let her foot slip, and that's what happens. When you try, when Amber Heard, the intellectual scion that she is, goes up against a woman who's clearly far cleverer than she is. And yeah, that's kind of delicious to see that. So is it a victory though for gender equality? It's a victory for justice. It's not a victory for social justice necessarily, I don't think. This is just a case of defamation. This is just a defamation trial between two people in Hollywood. They happen to be in a marriage, happen to be this issue of domestic abuse. And Amber Heard has come out now after, I'm sorry, I'm sad I lost the trial. I bet you're very sad you didn't get $100 million you're panhandling for. And yeah, she's got to stump up $13 million now. So I have a nice career in Hollywood after this also. And yeah, and everything else she's done or has been suspected of doing, and it's perjury thing with the FBI and the Australians. And she comes out and says, after this trial, that this is a defeat for women's rights and women's right to speak up publicly about domestic abuse. Because it sent us back to an earlier time where women weren't allowed to speak up about domestic abuse. For instance, I don't think I do happen to know that during the temperist movement that led to the Prohibition era in the United States, that a great deal of that was motivated by the notion that men become more violent when we drink, and that there would have been an awful lot of female temperists exerting quite a bit of political influence to try and achieve the aim of prohibiting alcohol sales. In fact, I'm pretty certain that was the main reason. So even back then, even in like pre-prohibition era of the United States, late 19th century, early 20th century, it seems women actually had a fair amount of political clout and could get things done and could change things. So yeah, and it's a little churlish, I think, to assert that necessarily. And I'm sorry to say, it's an unfair degree of emphasis in certainly British education gets put on, say, like the suffragette movement, and we're not really educated at school, at least, on the broader history there of trying to secure voting rights for adults in Britain, since voting rights used to be restricted prior to 1918 in the UK to property owning classes. So, i.e., anyone who owned a house or a business. And I think when they say owned, like, it means outright back then, more like, and or owns a business outright, and you're not renting. And yeah, they mean the owners of land and property, and all that was motivated not really due to any kind of sexism necessarily, but more like attempting to limit the extent to which the working class, we have this whole Chartist movement going back to about 1836, I think, or thereabouts, limiting the voting rights of the working classes, even non-property owning classes, and trying to keep it as much as possible within the hands of the landed gentry and aristocracy. The Tory party traditionally representing the gentry, i.e., business owning people, the middle classes, basically. The Liberal Party, on the other hand, representing the interests of the old aristocratic families. And that's how the political division used to work before the rise of the Labour Party and socialism in Britain. But I digress a little bit, I think. Yeah, it's a wonderfully progressive age we're living in. It really is. And there's lots of victories for, social justice and all sorts of other things, which are good, which are positive in essence. Perhaps the way in which these sorts of arguments and points are articulated by certain activists and pundits might need sharpening and improving, and could be a little more adroit, possibly, and diplomatic. And we do need like less of the shouty feminazi types, and we do need more sort of calm, sober discussion about how to progress and move forward and consolidate the victories of the past in these movements. And it's because you get too shouty, you get too aggressive and violent, and you get like the Antifa spring up on one side, which everyone gets very scared of because they're all dressed in black, you can't see their faces, and it's a bit scary. It seems like a sort of militia or paramilitary group, or it has a flavour of that to it. Then on the other hand, you get sort of these corn-fed sort of polo shirt wearing, chino slack wearing, or shirt buttoned up wearing, short back and side, neo-fascist Charlottesville boys, children, popping up and like marching through the streets with flags to protest it. Action, reaction, and it ends up in this idiotic cycle of stimulus and reaction on the other end of the political spectrum, and nothing furthers. I was just caught in a mess where people are really just inflamed by just not fear necessarily, but anger and being affronted and effrontery. But yeah, I mean, sort of a more nuance needs to be added into these discussions, particularly with things like the pay gap. I'm not really affected by the pay gap because I'm self-employed currently, not earning a hell of a lot of money, and I've been screwed over in employment. Not recently, but they tried to recently. And earlier this year, I was screwed over to the tune of between, I suspect, 1,500 quid at the minimum and more like £2,500, very possibly, with my expenses added in, that resulted from the termination of my contract under, I imagine, reasons based in discrimination against my mental health. But yeah, the mental health conditions from which I suffer. Go figure. Yay. Disabilities. Lovely. And I mean, those, yeah, like as you can see, I'm obviously like dress, and you know, this has been an interesting. I mean, this is genuinely how I feel about myself. I do feel I'm androgynous, and I do feel that I'm on a significant level feminine, if not female, if you see what I mean. And walking around in Westbury today, like, you do get some funny looks. People sort of react to you in different ways. And by the way, both men and women, and more women than you'd probably like to imagine, don't, and online as well, like the torrents of abuse I've received sometimes from men and women. Yeah. Trans exclusionary radical feminists among men and women, and there's more than you think there are. There's a lot out there. So it's been interesting on that level to sort of gauge this level of hatred towards people who appear to sit in the sort of grey area between the genders/sexes, or between the sexes, really. And so far as the way in which gender breaks down, and even the way that biological sex breaks down in reality, I don't think we're all that close to really understanding it fully. I don't. And I think it's just another example of the incredible amount of variability there are between individual human beings. And it seems to me as though two boxes into which people fit, like male and female, on this gender/sex level, seems only a little bit, if not a lot bit, simplistic and lacking in nuance. Seemingly, it would seem. I think so. So yeah, and like, and oh, by the way, like the women who are TERFs, like, like look at you like weirdly, like if you're wearing a dress, like what? Like, you fucking people get to go. Yeah, I'm saying you people as well, as in TERF people. Like, you get to go around in male style clothing to your heart's content, and no one bats an eyelid or challenges you on it ever. Like, the amount of like women who go around in jeans and t-shirts and hoodies and trainers, and by the way, suits. If you're little like women in the corporate world and whatnot, and they sort of, like, turn the suit into your own thing, like wear your petticoats and blouses, huh? Like, you get inside, young lady. Put on a blouse at least, or a nice frock. Wearing a suit, dear girl. Like, I mean, yeah, we can go back to the age of sexism if you like, but I mean, also don't dish out what you can't receive. There's that as well. So like, why shouldn't I be allowed to wear a dress? It's the summer. It's the sunny outside. Beautiful weather. This is like the perfect thing to wear. It's lovely, and I love it. So I'm not going to stop wearing it. No. Like, this needs to be more normal. This needs to be more normalized among, shall we say, biological men, just to make the conversations surrounding this issue easier. I think we might need to, possibly, just as a sort of colloquialism, a shorthand for what we mean. No, why can't BMs? God, I've done a horrible little like SJW acronym there, haven't I? Yeah, but like, why can't we go around in lady clothes? Frankly, like, even if you don't identify as transgender on any level, or of or gender non-conforming on any level, as I do, just like if you're a straight up male and you identify as biologically male in terms of your gender, go around in a dress. Scottish blokes do it with kilts. Probably for the midges, yeah. Or is that like, would that make the midge problem worse? No. We're gonna go like some Highlander with a big beard and a thick woolly jumper and this kilt. They say he looks like a girl. Like, I wouldn't. Like, I'd say nice kilt, I wouldn't say nice skirt. But like, we're Englishmen. Right? We are more effete than the Scots. why aren't we allowed dresses and skirts and nice things? It seemed unfair. Only 5 minutes ago, I saw like a girl like waddling about in t-shirt, shorts, trainers. Like, and she didn't give me a funny look. Of course, she seemed like a nice one, but a lot of them would. A lot of them would. It's a shame. More men need to do this. We could have incredible fun, have lovely parties, and possibly tea and biscuits and things, and like, do lazy things. Because girls do lovely things. They like meet for coffee and so on. But like, coffee would have been improved a lot in Britain, of course, if we could have a blunt with our coffee. So like, introduce a masculine element into it. I think I said about all I want to say on this, really. It's like Amber Heard, Johnny Depp thing. And I will see you. Love you lots, everybody. Bye bye bye. It's been a pleasure talking to you as always. Thank you.